You know what my grandmother once told me? Professor Mugo leaned back, examining my trembling hands on the polished table. She said a rooster does not crow in a house of lions. He allowed the words to settle like Nairobi's evening heat pressed against the windows. Joel, sometimes life is about knowing when not to crow. My presentation folder slipped from my fingers, its neat diagrams and equations scattered across the polished tile, pages fluttering with my sketched robot hand and battered budget calculations. For 3 months, I'd worked in the small hours under a weak bulb, soldering wires and coaxing motors into movement, all for this, the university's annual innovation grant, my moment. A rustle of sighs passed around the committee. One professor picked up a sheet between two fingers, pursed her lips, and studied my crawling lines of code. Mr. Elusa, another began, voice soft. Your idea is, he paused, searching Mugo's amused face for help. Each of their eyes had the same tired patience people reserved for stubborn children. Well, it's ambitious, very ambitious. Out on the quad, laughter drifted up from students sprawled across benches. It was the end of the year. People were light, joking, combative in the way only the certain can be. I heard the sunlight on leaves, the distant honking from Uhuru Highway, as if one version of reality faded in while mine sputtered out. At this university we seek innovation, but also realism, Professor Mugo continued, gently, that sharp disappointment disguised as kindness. Chasing science fiction may be fun, but… He steepled his hands. The decision was made. We are sorry, Joel, said the soft-voiced professor, and with a perfunctory thank you, the meeting dissolved. Another student grinned at me in the corridor, balancing his acceptance letter. Hard luck, he said, clapping my shoulder. The corridor was full of certainty, of futures that seemed already cemented. I lingered in that sterile light, holding the empty folder against my chest so it wouldn't shake. I returned home to Mathare at dusk, weaving past corrugated stalls and thrown laughter. Mums in flowered kangas sold ugali and boiled maize by spluttering lamps. Children called jokes at each other, chasing after the matatus with their painted lightning bolts. My pocket was thin, 20 shillings hugging my phone, not enough for a boda boda. Smells of charcoal, sweat and hope, thin and stubborn, filled the narrow walkways. Inside our one-room house, Mama was peeling sukuma on the small table, yellow lamplight softening her lines. My sister Mercy sprawled on the bed with headphones. Baba, lips pursed over the Daily Nation, didn't look up. It didn't go, Mama started, her voice kind by habit, not certainty. I shook my head, sliding onto the stool. Mercy tugged her headphones down, catching the mood. They said it was a fantasy, I whispered. Mama put her hand over mine, squeezing until my fingers strung. So what? People laughed at Wangari Maathai too, she said, but the words flickered and died. Baba closed his paper. University people don't want toys, he said. Joel, please try the teaching track like your Uncle Karanya, that's a stable income. I pressed my lips together and stared at the knot in the wooden ceiling beam. Mercy's phone pinged, she stifled a laugh. Look, a meme about you in the class group, she muttered, screen glowing in my direction. I turned away. Later, friends messaged sympathy laced with awkwardness. The city outside carried on. The persistent radio, the sound of frying mandazi, the far-off echo of a preacher's microphone. Their lives went forward. It seemed, was paused, because I'd tried to give a robot a hand. You build a new shell out of disappointment. Mine was bitter and thin, but it kept me standing. Mornings, I took my patched backpack out to industrial area where factories hummed behind rusted fences. I picked up menial IT work, rewiring kiosks, cleaning motherboards caked in dust. On good days, I fixed a controller or assembled cheap knockoffs for electronics shops. At night I returned to the same table, the quiet hum of my family's sleep, and rebuilt. Soldering bits scavenged from broken fans, reassembling gearboxes out of old bicycle chains. I watched MIT YouTube lectures on Mama's cracked phone, scribbling code on the backs of receipts. Neighbors murmured, Joel is clever but perhaps only for school, robotics, that's for America. He should help his family, one aunt told Mama at church, voice dipped in concern. Uncle Karanya stopped by with a new curriculum booklet. It's not shame, Joel, you could teach. Make your parents proud. I nodded, thankful only for the darkness that hid my eyes. I failed and failed. The fingers of my robot seized and sparked. Sometimes the thin wires burned out or the tiny wheels jammed. Once a candle dripped and sent smoke pouring across my schematics. My heart knotted every time I had to explain to Mama where my small money went. To her credit, she gave what she could, always with a worried smile. What's the use of a robot that picks up a spoon? Baba sighed once. We can do that with our own hands. But the thing was, a man I met in the market could not. 60, one arm lost to a work accident. He told me people only see half my body, nobody asks what I could do with the rest. The rest, his words buzzed behind my temples as I sifted through old desktop monitors. Almost 2 years passed. My friends graduated, slotted themselves into office jobs or left for Canada, Qatar, some new life in Europe. Their patience with my dream faded, my family's pride frayed into worry, I grew thin with doubt. Yet piece by piece the thing on Mama's table took shape, a crude robotic arm lifting with surprising grace. The first time it picked up a spoon, I watched the trembling metal move, and for a moment I forgot my own hands, the years. Something inside me reassembled. A low point, late 2020, during a pandemic curfew, money gone, options closing. The power failed at dusk, plunging our block into darkness. I sat for hours in the cold, the robot gut open on my lap. I stared and stared. What are you clinging to now? Baba asked, voice tired past anger. Let him be, Mama murmured. I won't always be here to let him be. I know, I replied, so quietly neither was certain who spoke. That week I saw a post. The Nairobi Engineering Expo, virtual that year, offered a small grant for creative solutions to real Kenyan problems. Open to anyone, no university batch required. I hesitated a whole morning before filling the form. 2 weeks later, an email shortlisted. My robot's video demo, shaky, filmed by Mercy on a torchlit phone, made it to the finals. Presenters from big companies, young men in sharp jackets, women with polished confidence. I had a threadbare shirt and a trembling live connection, but I spoke with something new burning in me. I explained why a simple, robust robot mattered, what it could mean for someone alone, someone missing a limb, for a child in Lodwar, for the man in the market. I showed it bending, gently grasping a spoon, a mug, a maize cob. The chat filled with questions, some were skeptical, others curious. A judge from Germany asked why my design looked so rough. Because rough things don't break when they fall, I said, and expensive things don't reach every home. It wasn't brilliant rhetoric, but it was real. A week later I received a call, my design placed second. A small award followed and funds enough to buy proper tools, to eat well for a month, to feel my lungs fill out with hope. Mercy dragged relatives to the watch party for the announcement. Mama wept quietly, eyes shining. Baba shook my hand, not trusting himself to speak. You may not have won first, he said late that night, but today you beat more than them, you beat that committee. Only a little, I replied. I built my next prototype in a small Nakuru workshop run by a neighbor who believed in second chances. I hired 2 youths hungry to learn. Mori Expos came. A win at Kisumu County Tech Day, a feature in a local paper, a cautious partnership with a Dutch NGO working in prosthetics. Each time a little more trust, a little more attention. I learned Swahili technical words by necessity, training others to use my designs. They tweaked, improved, adapted, until my robot hands looked more like pliers, like claws, like things that belonged in their settings. People came to scoff at first, school boys, dismissive engineers, well-meaning doctors. This thing will break, they'd say, or real robots look different. But when a young girl with polio used it to help her grandma cook, there was a silence, then laughter, then applause. Word spread not quickly but like the truth, persistent and thick. By the time I received a letter from my old university, it felt both foreign and inevitable. We wish to invite you to deliver a keynote at our annual engineering week, it read, as if the old rejection had never happened. It is strange, walking through campus again after years that felt like a century. The jacaranda trees still dropped purple blossoms into the gutters. Young men swaggered, young women hurried past, chasing dreams and timetables. A student handed me a laminated badge, keynote speaker. I stood at the glass doors of Lecture Hall C, my heart drumming, and saw rows of faces, community members, former classmates, professors who'd looked through me as if I were thin air. Professor Mugo waited at the podium, hair grayer but bearing the same controlled smile. A hush fell, cameras blinked red, teachers leaned forward. Baba, Mama and Mercy slipped in the back, shaky but proud. I began with a joke about my old folder and shaky hands. The audience chuckled, some knowingly. I told the story not of success but of the days after rejection, of burning out, scraping from nothing. That night the lights failed and the dream was close to dying. I pulled the cloth from my demo, a small, tough robotic limb with local materials, scrap metal, 3D printed plastic, easy to repair in a rural town. I called a volunteer, a girl from Kybra who'd lost her left hand. She fitted the arm and under lights and held breath, picked up a pen. The room fell absolutely quiet, then broke into applause sharp enough to stink my eyes. Afterward, people crowded around. My childhood friend, Wycliffe, with his shy grin, patted my shoulder. "We thought you were mad, Joel, but you kept digging." I found Baba standing by the doorway, fists tight in his jacket. "You see," he finally said, struggling, "a man cannot use both his hands until he learns how to lose one." Mama, cheeks glistening, only hugged me, whispering thanks to God. From the stage, I locked eyes with Professor Mugo. He nodded quietly. Over the murmur of students and questions, he made his way over. "Innovation is for doers as much as dreamers, Joel," he admitted. "I see now you are both." The celebration stretched late. Old neighbors watched the video on their phones. Former critics shook my hand, pressed for advice for their own children. But at the very end, when the crowd thinned and spotlights cooled, I wandered alone through campus, under the jacaranda's purple haze. I recalled every night at Mama's table, every disappointment, every mocking word that strung like a slap. Each moment of loss pieced itself into something larger, not pride exactly, but a quiet certainty. I had come back. Not only to show them, but to remind myself, loss shapes us, and if we fight, so does hope. The city was sleeping as I finally walked home through the old lanes, past the markets, into the waiting arms of my family. The sunrise above the rusty rooftops of Mathare finally seemed bright enough for any dream.